And if it's all right with Mr. Smith here at the library, I might relate a couple.
I think that that'd be very interesting.
And there's one of them that was very serious. But the first one, I'll go back to a man, they used to call him Jesse. He made his living, part of his living, by fishing. He had lived in the boathouse, as I said, down at First Sandy. And he was a very odd man. Some days he'd be real good-natured, and the next day you didn't know how to take him. But anyway, one of his friends, the old-timers down there, in the spring of the year when they perch were starting to spawn, and there used to be big runs at that time back at where Sperling's home is now, along down that shore of Sandy Beach. And at this particular time, this friend of this other man here, he once bore some fish poles. Well, they had fish poles, they cut little cedar trees, and they were about, I'd say about 5 foot long, and they had the line hooked onto them, and they could put out as high as 8 around them in the boat, right around them during this part of the year. Well, this man was short, and he wanted to bore some, and of course Jesse, I'll name the man by that name, he didn't think the fish would bite on account of the weather. So the other fellow says, he called him Judd. I'll go that far, I won't go any farther than Dave. And he says, well, let me take your poles. So he loaned him 4 poles. And of course, sitting on the platform in front of his boathouse, he could see everything was going on. So this man went out, set out his poles and everything, and all of a sudden the perch started to bite. And of course, they had bobbers there, and you could see this man pulling up and pulling up. The old man sitting on the dock. Yeah, well, he made money selling fish. He wasn't going to let him get away with everything, so out he goes. But where the funny part comes in, to the man that he loaned the 4 poles to, before he started to fish, he went over and demanded the 4 poles back, but he wanted to use them. Although he had plenty for himself besides, but he still wanted them 4 poles. He wouldn't let him use them for the simple reason he figured he was catching more than what he'd catch. So the fellow said, all right, if that's the way you feel about it. I could tell you more, but I won't go into that. He gave him back the 4 poles. So the man, Jesse, went down below him, and he set out, anchored, set the poles out all around him, about 8. Imagine what that is when you're sitting in the center of some and the perch are biting fast. Things went pretty good for a little while, and all of a sudden Jesse got a big hit. And he made a grab for one of the poles, and he made the hook all right. He hooked him. But he got one of the worst hooks he ever got in his life. If you'd have seen it, it was the countless thing you ever seen. He caught a big eel, and that eel made a complete circle of the boat and tangled himself up in the lines that he had overboard there, from the 8 poles. And when he got him in the boat and got him off so he could release him, it took him the rest of the week to untangle his fish lines, and he called that other man everything he could think of because he thought he was to blame. Well, to tell the big of the story short, if he hadn't been so greedy, he'd probably never got involved in this incident. But anyway, if you'd have witnessed it, it's one of the commonest things you ever seen. To see him trying to land that eel and all them lines with the poles and everything in the water, tangled up, and you know how an eel can do a job on you. Well, that was one of the incidents